All indications point to Gaza, pummeled and brutalized for months, being on the brink of a path towards peace. Mediators have expressed hope that an agreement was close, with minor details still being ironed out, but the trajectory positive.
Over the past several weeks, our intensive efforts have brought us to the brink of full and final agreement. On Sunday, the United States, Qatar and Egypt put forward a final proposal. The ball is now in Hamas's court. If Hamas accepts, the deal is ready to be concluded and implemented. I believe we will get a ceasefire. And whether we get there in the remaining days of our administration or after January 20th, I believe the deal will follow closely the terms of the agreement that President Biden put forward last May and our administration rallied the world behind.
Views echoed by Qatar, that has played a central role on the ceasefire and hostage release negotiations.
What can be confirmed is that the drafts have been sent to both parties. Yes, difficulties facing the main pending issues between the two parties have been resolved, and talks are now underway on the final details. But we cannot give any more information about the nature, except to say that we have overcome the main obstacles in the disputes between the two parties. It is difficult for me, especially with the previous experiences that you are all aware of, to set any time frame for the announcement of a ceasefire, except to say that today we are at the closest point we have been to a deal.
If the deal in its current form goes ahead, fighting would stop in Gaza for 42 days. That would see the phased release of 33 Israeli hostages over a number of days in exchange for hundreds of Palestinian prisoners held by Israel. Fighting would be halted, with Israeli forces moving out of populated areas to the outskirts of Gaza. Based on the successful implementation of Phase 1, a second phase is mooted, when the remaining living hostages would be exchanged for an undisclosed number of Palestinian prisoners and the full withdrawal of Israeli troops from Gaza. Phase 3 would see the exchange of bodies of deceased Israeli hostages and Palestinian fighters, while the implementation of a reconstruction plan for Gaza would commence. The UN Secretary-General Wednesday urging the finalization of the deal.
In Gaza, we have been relentlessly calling for an immediate ceasefire, the immediate and unconditional release of the hostages, and the immediate action to protect civilians and ensure the delivery of life-saving aid. I want to once again salute the backbone of the humanitarian response, our colleagues in UNRWA. Of course, nothing can justify the terror attacks by Hamas on October 7th, and nothing can justify the dramatic levels of death and destruction inflicted on the Palestinian people. For months, there has been no ceiling to the suffering and no bottom to the horrors. I strongly appeal to all parties to finalize a ceasefire and hostage release deal sooner rather than later.
With any deal, the inevitable and urgent need to clear and reconstruct an enclave that has largely been reduced to rubble.
For many months, we've been working intensively with our partners to develop a detailed post-conflict plan that would allow Israel to fully withdraw from Gaza, prevent Hamas from filling back in, and provide for Gaza's governance, security, and reconstruction, drawing on the principles that I originally set out in Tokyo. We will hand off that plan to the Trump administration to carry forward. Israelis must decide what relationship they want with the Palestinians. That cannot be the illusion that Palestinians will accept being a non-people without national rights. 7 million Israeli Jews and some 5 million Palestinians are rooted in the same land. Neither is going anywhere. Israelis must abandon the myth that they can carry out de facto annexation without cost and consequence to Israel's democracy, to its standing, to its security.
A deal that could not come fast enough for a weary and traumatized population in Gaza. The pending agreement would be the first significant halt in fighting since the first temporary pause in November 2023, in which 78 Israeli hostages were released in exchange for 240 Palestinian prisoners. But even with a new agreement, Gaza is years away from any semblance of what existed before Hamas's attack on Israel in October 2023, with the UN Development Programme estimating that the war has erased over 69 years of progress, while further estimates range from between $50 billion and $80 billion in reconstruction costs over the next 2 decades. Sherwin Bryce-Pease, SABC News, New York.